Greetings everyone, my name is Pato Banton, and I've been asked by my two daughters, Tanya and Janika, to do a review of this book called the Urantia Millennium III, which is supposed to be a revelatory update of the Urantia book. I did a review before, which was a short review and a kind of a quick review. And since then I've been questioning, could I have looked deeper? And after speaking to a few people who, some critical of the book and some supportive of the book, I decided that it was time for me to take a deeper look. And so now I would like to present a full review of the Urantia Millennium III, an honest review, an unbiased review presenting the good, the bad and the ugly. So here we go. The contact personality is anonymous, so we don't know who actually did put this book together. But the contact personally says the following: I dedicate these works to Paramahansa Yogananda, who is my teacher, faithful guide, loyal friend, and a devoted messenger of Christ. I was an underachiever and a high school dropout who now realizes firsthand the truth and reality surrounding the Urantia papers and the potentials we all possess. I have been given a task of great import, and it has made me a true believer. So if someone is a true believer of the Urantia book and they are presenting a revelatory update, then it should be in harmony with the original text of the Urantia book. The Urantia book states, "Mark you well my words, nothing which human nature has touched can be regarded as infallible. Divine truth must not be discounted because the channel of its bestowal is apparently human. Let us be patient, the truth never suffers from honest examination." So here we have three great quotes. The first one is saying that nothing that touches human hands can be infallible or perfect. So let's just say the standards then of this revelation, because they're being touched by human hands, is not perfect. We'll give some room for human imperfection, but not major inconsistencies. Okay? We are also told we shouldn't discount it because it is apparently human. And some of my Urantia brothers who have not even read the book refuse to read it because they don't believe it, even without reading it. But I'm not going to discount it, I'm going to review it honestly. And let's be patient. I'm going to take you on a journey right now. It's a bit long and you can skip some or relax, get a drink, chill out and enjoy this presentation of Urantia Millennium III, the so-called revelatory update. Here we go. The Urantia book will be my source of reference to determine the validity of the Urantia Millennium's claims of being an update to the Fifth Epochal Revelation. The Urantia book states, "Revelations are of immense value in that they at least transiently clarify knowledge by the reduction of confusion by the authoritative elimination of error." So as we move forward, if this is a real update, we shouldn't be finding too many errors, as revelation eliminates errors. I remain open to any new truth because the Urantia book says the revelations of divine truth are not sealed except by human ignorance, bigotry, and narrow-minded intolerance. So we must maintain an open mind and always be ready to receive new revelation, in whatever form it appears. In paper 170-221, we are also told to come into the kingdom free from prejudice and preconception, to be open-minded and teachable like an unspoiled child. So that is my attitude, to be free from prejudice and preconception, to be open-minded and teachable like an unspoiled child. And so I'm asking the viewer to stay open-minded, to take a look at this with me and let's see what we find. All right. When I first read this book, I was very impressed with the inspirational content that resonated with my soul. I was so excited to know that our celestial family were reaching out to us again, that I totally overlooked the things that seemed slightly out of alignment with the Urantia book's teachings. Some of these contradictions were not obvious at first, but after being encouraged by Gary Tong, Derek Samaras, and a few other fellow Urantians to reevaluate my findings in this book, and after rereading the text several times, it all began to unravel before my eyes. I will be presenting 7 revelations according to the Urantia Millennium III, 2 of which I have found some serious errors in, and I will also be presenting 9 other conflicts that I have found between the Urantia Millennium III and the Urantia book. The table of contents and highlights from the introduction. Presented by a universal messenger in association with the United Midwayers of Urantia in liaison with an anonymous contact personality. It is our continuing mission to present an enlarged comprehension of the cosmos and thereby reveal advanced truths in order to establish a heightened awareness and a deeper understanding of God in the minds of mankind and Urantia. We are aware that there may be certain individuals who perhaps doubt the source and credibility of these presentations, but we are confident that there are no deficits of truth, and our substantive revelations are not a mere fabrication of the human mind. As you read further into these narratives, our credibility will be established. So here at the introduction in the table of contents, they're telling us very clearly that there are no errors to be found in their revelatory update. So they have set the stage, and we will unravel that and see if that is true. They go on to say, we are presently commissioned to also reveal the contact process employed in the materialization of authorized revelatory disseminations, thereby reinforcing comprehension and eliminating doubt or confusion. As demonstrated in our previous narratives, we are confident the reader will be enthralled by these presentations and in certain instances perhaps become overwhelmed by the scope and magnitude of our disclosures. Well, I was definitely not overwhelmed, and the depth, scope, magnitude of these disclosures does not go beyond the realms of the Urantia book. So these authors are definitely pumping up themselves, thinking that they're going to impress Urantia book readers, when actually they failed miserably to do that with me anyway. So let's move on. This is what they present in the book as Revelation 1, the Code of Trinitization. Not mentioned in the Urantia book. Trinitization is mentioned in the Urantia book, but 3 concentric triangles being the code of Trinitization is not mentioned in the Urantia book, so I will call this Revelation 1. It says the symbol bearing 3 concentric violet triangles is exclusive to these works and is not to be construed as a trademark belonging to any organizations other than which has been denoted by virtue of these works. So, for me personally, I would have expected a revelatory update of the Urantia book to bear the same symbolic credentials as the original revelation, which is the 3 concentric circles like the ones on my hat. But that's not the case here, and that's only my opinion. So we'll move on to Revelation 2. So in Revelation 2, they say there is a new name for the system of Satania. Very interesting. The reorganized local system of Satania in Nolatiadek. So they're saying not only is there a new name, but the entire system has been reorganized. By mandate of a certain Melchizedek and the constellation fathers, the Most Highs of Nolatiadek, your local universe, formerly known as Satania, is reorganized and universally recognized as Lanandesha, from where our commission proudly hails under the authority of Lanaforge, submitted by a universal messenger. So the Urantia book does state that Lanaforge is the new system sovereign of Satania. And it would make sense that at some point they would need to reorganize it after Lucifer's rebellion. What is interesting about this to me is that just before I read the book, I was frustrated with certain Urantia quotes I wanted to share on social media that contained the word Satania, which of course would draw negative feedback from the Christian community who already see the UB as a work of the devil. So I would just leave the word out most of the time. So this was great news to me. So that's Revelation 2. And you can take it or leave it, but that's what this revelatory update says. Revelation 3. The sacred Acastia Absonata. Presented by a universal editor enlisted in the supreme forces of Lanandesha, under the authority of the magnificent forces of the eternal Christ. The sacred Acastia Absonata are the deified, omnipresent, panoramic, infinite memory records and permanent universal archives which employ a virtual transport broadcast and receiving network, chronologically documenting all lives and personal experiences in the universes of time and space. They exist in the embodiment of a stationary dome located on the northern axial polar center of Jerusalem. This unique absonite mechanism harbors a vast memory manifested in a medium of living crystal comprised of words, symbols, audio, visual, and several multi-dimensional and sensory formats undiscovered by your world at the time of these presentations. The book goes on to say, unlike the judicial processes in civil and criminal courts on Urantia, and where in most cases an opening plea of guilty or not guilty is a required benchmark to set the standard for judgment based on allegations and hearsay spelt wrong, which would require further discovery by actual evidence and testimony to be proven in court, the Acasta Absonata becomes a super bona fide witness, which in most cases establishes an unequivocal display of reality and sets a standard of judgment by displaying an actual event as witnessed by angelic beings and in a multi-perspective, multi-dimensional presentation, similar to the placement of multi-camera angles, but hosted by living beings. In the Uversa Court, the Acacia archives are presented and displayed in the Tabernacle of Justice, which is a reflective monitor at the head of the court utilized to display an actual playback of reality. So what this is saying is that when it's time for judgment, and people are going to say guilty or not guilty, there's no real need for that, because what the judges do, they simply call the Acacia records to be put on the screen in the court, and then they have video presentations in 3D, multi-dimensional and multi-angle viewpoints of whichever event took place. So if somebody is robbing a bank or murdering somebody or raping somebody or doing something bad, they have it on the screen as witnessed by angels, as witnessed by indwelling adjusters who are living in everybody's minds, who witnessed it through their eyes, and any other celestial being that was on the scene. From their angle of watching what happened, it's in the Acacia records according to the Millennium III, and is submitted as evidence, real evidence, in the courts. So there's no real getting away with anything that you've done. Better to just confess and say yep and get it over with. So moving on. Revelation 4 according to Millennium 3. The quarantine of Nolatiadec, submitted by a solitary messenger. The sacred Acacia temple in Jerusalem was a prime target of raids by the Luciferian rebels. Now Jerusalem is this big planet in the middle of everything that you can see. As a result, enormous volumes of the precious living personality, universe history, and panoramic rain records were intentionally distorted and virtually murdered by collusion, culminating into the trial of Gabriel of Salvington versus Lucifer Filius 37 of Nebadon. So I don't think Lucifer's been given that full name in the Urantia book, but here we have it. Fortunately, reflective coordinates of the Acacia archives are retained in triplicate, and in more recent times are accessible only by official mandates of Supreme Councils on Salvington and Uversa. So even though Lucifer's rebels attacked the Acacia temple, they only could delete one of the databases of this saved data because they're saved in triplicate. And Lucifer and his fellow rebels didn't have access to the other two, which are probably stored outside of their range of travel. So this is saying that these records are saved in 3 places, but one of the places were attacked by Lucifer and his compatriots. The Luciferian rebel attacks on the Acacia archives also necessitated the inception of the quarantine of Nolatiadec, which is an extreme but necessary means of sequestering and protecting the flow of classified universe information. A new age of even greater enlightenment will occur on Urantia when the quarantine of Nolatiadec is finally rescinded. So there you have it. We already know that we have been quarantined, so that's not new news, except for what it says about the Acacia records. So let's move on. Revelation 5. It says that there is now an updated or new name for thought adjusters, which is interesting because I've always wondered, why did they say thought adjusters and thought controllers and stuff like that? it just kind of didn't seem so representative of a fragment of God's Spirit. That was just to me personally. But, it's interesting to see that in this book, they've also addressed that issue, which was on my mind too. Has been on my mind for a long time. So let's take a look. Revelation 5, new name for thought adjusters. In these presentations, be it known that the thought adjuster is given the word term truth adjuster. The decision to use the latter terminology is in favor of a more accurate description of the indwelling God fragment that mankind on Urantia is blessed with, and in essence is the ultimate truth. God may adjust thoughts and does adjust destiny, but God does not control what he bestowed as free will personality. This free will is what the Creator extends to his children of time and space. This is interesting because our study group is currently studying the Thought Adjuster papers, and I recently asked everyone what name they would prefer to give our indwelling spirits, and they responded with the following list to the right. And as you view this list, Soul Maker, Spirit Guide, Divine Spark, in the middle you'll see that somebody in our study group actually said the same thing, Truth Adjuster. I think that's a brilliant list anyway, but let's move on to Revelation 6. According to the Urantia Millennium III Revelatory Update 2020, our local universe mother spirit is known as Her Majesty Christa Maya, or Maya. The book goes on to say, the universe mother spirit of Nebadon was given complete authority and possessed the final word in universe decisions. This is out of harmony with the Urantia book's teachings. In this way, such sons become intelligent and understanding rulers. They come to know the various groups over which they rule and exercise universe authority. So this is talking about after the bestowals, but it's clearly stating that they already have authority. What we read in Millennium 3 said that the Mother Spirit was given complete authority. Okay, let's read the next quote. A little over 300 million years ago, as time is reckoned on Urantia, we witnessed another of those transfers of universe authority to Emmanuel and observed the preparations of Michael for departure. Now this is 300 million years ago. Michael's about to go on a mission. Michael puts authority not in the Mother Spirit. He puts authority in Emmanuel, who is a union of days, and Jesus is, or Christ Michael's, elder brother. Emmanuel is also created by the Trinity, by the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. And Emmanuel means God with us. And it's Emmanuel who Michael entrusts his authority to. Moving on. And this is Emmanuel speaking right now in this next quote. I exercise all authority and wield all power in your name. I function as would our Paradise Father, and in accordance with your explicit request that I thus act in your stead. And such being the fact, all this delegated authority is yours again to exercise at any moment you may see fit to requisition its return. As a mortal incarnate in the realm, you are without celestial endowments, but all your relinquished power may be had at any time you may choose to reinvest yourself with universe authority. If you should choose to reinstate yourself in power and authority. Now this is this is Emmanuel talking to Michael when Michael's about to become a human being and be born as a baby, a helpless baby, and grow up as a human being on our planet. And Emmanuel is saying, I am the one now with all the power, and I will act as if God was here taking over the controls. But if at any time you, Michael, want to take back authority, you can do it. It's yours. It belongs to you. The Urantia Millennium III also goes on to say, not until the completion of Christ Michael's bestowal missions did Her Majesty Krista Maya issue a proclamation of equality with the Son, and they forever rule as one. This is also out of harmony with the Urantia book, which teaches Michael is the personification of the Paradise Father's Son to and in the local universe of Nebudan. Therefore, when the creative Mother Spirit, the local universe representation of the Infinite Spirit, subordinated herself to Christ Michael, upon the return from his final bestowal on Urantia, the Master Son thereby acquired jurisdiction over all power in heaven and on earth. So there you have it. The Mother Spirit subordinates herself to Michael. Because they shared the power in our universe, They came here together and jointly created everything. But the authority was in Michael's hands, but he shared the power with the Mother Spirit. But once he becomes the sovereign, the Mother Spirit subordinates herself to him. Please look up the meaning of subordinate if you're not sure. Okay? Moving on. It is at the enthronement of the Creator Son as a Master Son at the Jubilee of Jubilees that the Universe Spirit before the assembled hosts first makes public and universal acknowledgement of subordination to the Son, pledging fidelity and obedience. So not only is the Mother Spirit humbly subordinating herself, she's also saying, I will be faithful to you and obedient to you. Publicly. I wish my wife would do that. The next paragraph goes on to say, after this pledge of subordination by the creative Mother Spirit, Michael of Nebudan nobly acknowledged his eternal dependence on his spirit companion, constituting the spirit co-ruler of his universe domains, and requiring all their creatures to pledge themselves in loyalty to the Spirit as they had to the Son. And there issued and went forth the final proclamation of equality. Though he was the sovereign of this local universe, the Son published to the worlds. As you can see earlier, they said it was the Mother Spirit that issued a proclamation of equality. But now we're reading that the Son published to the worlds the fact of the Spirit's equality with him in all endowments of personality and attributes of divine character. So that's a no-no for the Millennium 3 as far as giving information that is not in harmony with the Urantia book. We're going to Revelation 7 now. The Salvagian daughters. The Salvagian daughters are the direct offspring of the universe mother spirit and are essentially known as the daughters of God. The Salvagian daughters are polar opposites of the Lananandek sons. There are over 4,000 Salvagian daughters in Nebadon. They are the first and continuing expressions of the infinite spirit in the worlds of time and space. We're going to explore this now and see how accurate this information is. The Urantia book states the following. In dealing with sex creatures, it is our custom to speak of those beings of more direct descent from the Father and Son as the sons of God, while referring to the children of the Spirit as the daughters of God. Angels are therefore commonly designated by feminine pronouns on the sex planets. So here we see the daughters of God is applied to all the beings that are created by the infinite spirit and the mother spirit. These types of beings are coming from the feminine aspect of deity and divinity and are therefore given the attributes of femininity. No son could hope for final success without the incessant cooperation of the divine minister and her vast assemblage of spirit helpers, the daughters of God. So that's clarifying what I said and what the Urantia book said, that female entities coming from the female aspects of divinity are referred to as the daughters of God, not just these Salvagian daughters. Okay? Also, according to the Urantia book, the local universe mother spirit is the first and continuing expression of the infinite spirit in the worlds of time and space. The first quote states, the universe representative of the infinite spirit, the universe mother spirit. It doesn't mention any other representatives of the infinite mother spirit in the Urantia book. It says representative very clearly. The next quote goes on to say, the spirit of the divine minister, the representative of the infinite spirit in the local universe. There you have it again. It's just mentioning one representative of the infinite mother spirit. In her first expression of creation, the universe mother spirit, by regeneration and reflective multiplicity, separates into new and diverse expressions of herself, thus creating female personalities known as the Salvagian daughters. This is out of harmony with the Urantia book for two reasons. Let's take a look. Firstly, the mother spirit's first expression of creation are the seraphic hosts. The Urantia book says, the Creator Son and the universe representation of the infinite spirit, which is the mother spirit, collaborate in the creation of a large number of sons and other universe personalities. Following the completion of this united effort, the Son engages in the creation of the material sons. These are the Adam and Eve's, the first of the sex creatures, while the universe mother spirit concurrently engages in her initial, which means first, in her initial solitary effort at spirit reproduction. Thus begins the creation of the seraphic host of a local universe, the daughters of God. So the Urantia Millennium III is saying that the mother spirit's first expression of creation is the Salvagian daughters. The Urantia book says it's actually the seraphim that is the first expression of the mother spirit's creation. So that is totally out of harmony with the Urantia book. Let me move on. Secondly, only God separates, into new and diverse expressions of himself. The Urantia book says fragmented entities of deity. Alright? This order of living existence originating in the universal Father is best typified by the thought adjusters. This is what God does. Nobody else does that. And even the infinite Spirit, the eternal Son does not do that. And the infinite Spirit does not do it the way God does. So, it's very, very, it's just incorrect to state that the Mother Spirit can fragmentize herself. Moving on, the fragmentations of the pre-mind spirit of the third source and center, though hardly comparable to the Father fragments, are bestowed upon certain of the surviving mortals, and fusion therewith constitutes them spirit-fused mortals, in contradistinction to adjuster-fused mortals. So here you have it. Our Heavenly Father fragmentizes himself on a non-personal level, but these entities are God. They live within us, speak to us, guide us, and fuse with us, and bring us all the way to paradise. The eternal Son does not do anything like this. And the infinite Spirit, which is the third person of the Paradise Trinity, sends her spirit mind fragment, to fuse with mortals who fail or who are not delegates for Father fusion. They become spirit fused with the third person of the Trinity through our Mother Spirit. But these are not fragments of the infinite Spirit. These are mind spirit. These are like spirit influences that stay with these people forever once they fuse with them. Very different than fragmenting the way that God does. So the Salvagian daughters of this Revelation number 7, so far nothing about them is in harmony with the Urantia book's teachings. So we're going to move on now to focus on 9 contradictions and conflicts that it has with the Urantia book. Alright, here we go. Here it is, conflict number 1. Adjusters are not personality. The Urantia Millennium III states, if adjuster fusion is not attained, the once indwelling personal truth adjuster, prior to returning to divinity, merges with the sacred Acastia Absonata. The Urantia book constantly tells us that adjusters are pre-personal until the Father gives them personalities. So while they're indwelling us, they are not personality, we are personality. And they want to get our personality, and we desire to acquire their divinity, which gives us eternity. The book goes on to say the personal truth or destiny adjuster contributes highly to the data harbored in the Acastia Absonata. So there it goes again, mentioning the personal truth adjuster. The Urantia book states, adjusters are not personality, they are pre-personal beings. Also, God may make direct personal contact with any part or phase or kind of creation through the agency of his pre-personal fragments. And the last quote says, thought adjusters are not true personalities. Though not personal, these marvelous fragments of the Father are commonly referred to as beings, and sometimes, in view of the spiritual phases of their present ministry to mortals, as spirit entities. So there you have it. That's the first conflict. The Urantia book doesn't talk like that. And if you are an update to the Fifth Epochal Revelation, it would be assumed that you would continue with the same language which is important to the text and the information provided. Let's move on to conflict number 2. This is related to God the ultimate. And we are now going through a phase of God the supreme. Once we complete this universal age of God the supreme, we will enter the age of God the ultimate. And then after that, God the absolute. Let's look at what Urantia Millennium III says. This eloquent declaration was subsequently ordained by the Melchizedeks and the Constellation Fathers. The Most Highs of Nolatiadek, ultimately praised by the Orvanton Ancients of Days as the genesis of the manifestation of the perfect will of the Paradise Trinity and God the ultimate in the worlds of time and space. It is a mistake to assign God the ultimate to the worlds of time and space, when the Urantia book clearly states God the supreme, the actualizing or evolving God of time and space. There you have it, clearly in black and white. The Urantia book also states God the ultimate, the eventuating God of supertime and transcended space, the second experiential level of unifying deity manifestation. So this is an eventuating God of supertime and transcended space, not time and space, way above time and space. God the ultimate is designative of personal deity functioning on the divinity levels of the Absonite and on the universe spheres of supertime and transcended space. The ultimate is a super supreme eventuation of deity. So there you have it again. It could be so easily overlooked if someone is not familiar with the deep teachings of the Urantia book. But this is obviously a conflict to assign God the ultimate, which is an eventuating God of super time and transcended space, the second level of eventuating deity. Nothing to do with this universe age, but this Millennium 3 is trying to assign time and space to God the ultimate. It doesn't match up. It doesn't match up. It's like saying, I want to give a gift to Pato Banton in Japan when Pato Banton's living in California. I'm not there, you know? So you can't assign something to a being or eventuating God that's in a totally different part of the universe versus the supreme being, which is in our, realm of time and space. Moving on, I'd like to take a quick pause for an interesting observation. Before I present the next 7 areas I have found in the Urantia Millennium 3, I'd like to point out that all following points of conflict involve the Lananandek sons in some way. The Revelatory Update 2020 seems to be trying to elevate these sons way beyond their rank. So let's see what their true status is before moving forward. These types of sons about to consider are of local universe origin. They are the offspring of a paradise creator son in varied association with the complemental universe mother spirit. The first order, number 1, is the Melchizedek sons. The second order is the Verandadek sons. And of all orders of local universe sonship, they are the most often entrusted with the full delegation of sovereign powers to be exercised in critical universe situations. So the Verandadeks are above the Lananandeks, and they are given full powers in certain critical situations. There's a reason for that, and that reason is because they're the most reliable Alright? I'm not going to give supreme authority to beings who have a history of rebelling. And the Lananandeks do have a history of rebelling. But let's move on. Number 3, the Lananandek sons. Since Lananandeks are a somewhat lower order of sonship than the Melchizedeks and the Verandadeks, they stand in greater danger of going astray, of departing from the acceptable technique of universe government. Our local universe has been unfortunate in that over 700 sons of the Lananandek order have rebelled. Over 700 of these very high spiritual sons, created beings by Michael and the Mother Spirit, have taken it upon themselves to rebel against the system, against God, and against Christ, Michael, and the Mother Spirit. And as we move forward, please keep in mind that they are not the first order or the second order, they are the third order of creative beings called the Lananandek sons. Okay, here we go. Conflict number 3, our system sovereign. The Urantia Millennium III states, subsequent to the events of the Lucifer rebellion, a supreme doctrine of loyalty to the universal Father was promulgated by Christ Michael of Nebadon. This eloquent declaration was created by our system sovereign Christ Michael of Nebadon and the Universe Mother Spirit, Her Majesty Christa Maya. Now, please remember that Christ Michael is not a system sovereign. He is the local universe sovereign, the sovereign of our entire universe. A system sovereign is only responsible for a few planets in a certain area of a sector of a constellation of a part of the universe. And these system sovereigns are Lananandek sons. Let's move on. Forever shall we abide in the authority of our system sovereign and universe Mother Spirit, as they abide in the ultimate authority of the universal Father. So here they're talking about Christ Michael and the Mother Spirit, but they're calling Christ Michael the system sovereign twice. Huge error and totally out of harmony with the Urantia book. The author seems to be confused that Christ Michael is the creator and sovereign of the entire universe of Nebadon, not just a system sovereign, which is the role assigned to primary Lananandeks. The Urantia book states, after the creation of the Verandadeks, the Creator Son and Universe Mother Spirit unite for the purpose of bringing into existence the third order of universe sonship, the Lananandeks. Although occupied with varied tasks connected with the system administrations, they are best known as system sovereigns, the rulers of the local systems and planetary princes, the administrative heads of the inhabited worlds. The Urantia book goes on in another quote to say, the system sovereign Lanaforge, 2709 of the primary order and successor to Lucifer. So our system sovereign is Lanaforge, who took over from Lucifer. To assign Michael of Nebadon as a system sovereign is wrong. Full stop. Let's move on. Conflict number 4 is related to recalling Christ Michael. Before I start, I just want to say Christ Michael is the head of our universe. No one in our local universe can call him back or recall him. He is now the system sovereign. None of the beings that he created can call him back. They didn't send him. The only person that can recall Christ Michael is the Paradise Trinity. God the Father and God the Son, who created him and sent him into the local universe. Now that's straight. Let's move on. Let's see what the Urantia Millennium III is saying. Due to the widespread system rebellion in Nebadon, Christ Michael was recalled by the Most Highs of Nolatiadek, which are Verandadek sons. And rather than proceeding to Havana with the Universe Mother Spirit, he chose to remain in Nebadon. No one in Nebadon has the authority to recall Christ Michael, who is the creator and sovereign ruler of our local universe. The Urantia book states, both Verandadeks and Lenanandeks are brought into being by a creator son and his creative spirit associate. Verandadeks are best known as the Most Highs, the constellation fathers. Lenanandeks as system sovereigns and as planetary princes. So in the scheme of being recalled, the Most Highs, who are also the constellation fathers, who are created by Michael, would be recalled by Michael. They do not recall Michael from anything or anywhere. The Verandadeks have the authority, though. The constellation fathers and the Most Highs do have the authority to recall Lenanandeks, system sovereigns, and planetary princes. That's who they have the authority to recall. The Urantia book also states, when system sovereigns, Lenanandeks, or assistants are recalled, their places are filled by selections made by the Supreme Council, located on the constellation headquarters. Also, the Urantia book says, the Supreme Lenanandek Councils are stationed on the various constellation headquarters. Such a body is presided over by the senior Most High associate of the constellation father, while the junior associate supervises the reserves of the secondary order. So just reiterating what I said earlier, the Most Highs, who are also constellation fathers, they are over the Lenanandeks, and they have the authority to recall them after they've gone out into the universe to become system sovereigns or planetary princes. For some reason, the author of this Millennium 3 is confused about who is who, what their role and what their authority is in the Urantia book. Anyway, I'm going to move on to conflict number 5. The subject is Our Mother Spirit Never Leaves Nebadon. The Urantia Millennium states, as I read earlier, due to the widespread Lenanandek system rebellion in Nebadon, Christ Michael was recalled by the Most Highs of Nolatiadek, which we now know is false, and rather than proceeding to Havana with the Universe Mother Spirit, he chose to remain in Nebadon, which to me is obvious or natural because he created Nebadon. This is his home. The Urantia book states, the Mother Spirit of a local universe remains always at its headquarters, extending her fostering care and spiritual ministry to the uttermost parts of such an evolutionary domain. The Universe Mother Spirit never leaves the local universe headquarters world. The spirit of the Creator Son may and does function independently of the personal presence of the Son, but not so with her personal spirit. The Holy Spirit of the Divine Minister would become non-functional if her personal presence should be removed from Salvington. Her spirit presence seems to be fixed on the universe headquarters world. And lastly, since these divine spirits of the infinite Mother Spirit, this is the Mother Spirit they're talking about, will not likely ever return to their paradise home, not likely ever return to their paradise home, They derive great satisfaction from the universal reflectivity phenomenon associated with the Supreme Being in Havana and personalized in Majestan and Paradise. So there you have it. The Mother Spirit never leaves. She remains always. And there's no way that they are seeing her going back home. In fact, she has to get her feeling of being back home through Majestan, who reflects what's going on back home and the personalities back home. And that's how our Mother Spirit, you know, like it's like me making a video call with my mum in England, you know, so that I can get that feeling of being back home. You know, that's how the Mother Spirit gets her feeling of being back in paradise. But apart from that, the terminology is used, not likely ever return to her paradise home. So for this book to say that because there was an upheaval in Michael's universe, he was recalled, but instead of going back home to paradise with the Mother Spirit, he decided to stay, makes no sense, because there's no way Michael would leave his universe because some of the children he created rebelled. That's not how he functions. He goes and fixes the situation personally. So this is another situation where this Millennium 3 book does not make sense in my observations. So let's move on to the next conflict. Conflict number 6. Lenanendek becoming Creator Son. I'm questioning this. The Urantia Millennium III states, Creator Sons and Universe Mother Spirits jointly create unique levels of diverse, deified beings and material realities. That is true. When their creative potential is finally maximized, all potential is finally achieved in time and space. The presiding Creator Son and Universe Mother Spirit hand down their thrones in succession to their chosen sons and daughters and proceed inward to the Havana worlds. So we just read about them saying that Michael and the Mother Spirit are destined to go back to Havana. And we read that the Mother Spirit never leaves. Let's see what the Urantia book says about this. Sometimes we refer to the sovereign of our universe of Nebanon as Christ Michael. Always and forever do they reign after the order of Michael. Always and forever. It didn't just say always. It didn't just say forever. It said always and forever. I don't expect that to end anytime soon. The Urantia book goes on to say, no one may with finality of authority presume to discuss either the natures or the destinies of the sevenfold master sovereigns of the local universe. And this is clearly saying that no one in the universe may with authority discuss his destiny or his nature. That's what this Millennium 3 is trying to do, on more than one occasion so far. The Urantia book goes on to say, sometime in the far distant future, in the now mobilizing universes of outer space, we believe, okay, it's saying we believe, not with authority, not with surety, it's saying we believe, so they are conjecturing. We believe that the liaison between a sevenfold Master Son and a seventh stage creative spirit may attain to absolute levels of service attended by the appearance of new things, meanings, and values, and transcendental levels of ultimate universe significance. This is not talking about going backwards to old things. This is talking about new things on transcended levels, which is future levels. So again, This is a conflict that cannot be rectified. Let's continue to take a look at what it's saying about Lananandex becoming creator sons. When a Lananandex son of promise chooses a Salvagian daughter, she is destined to become his matriarch and divine minister, thus attaining the honor as a co-creator. The book goes on to say, as they progress through the inner circles of attainment, only one Lananandex son of promise will ever attain the status of a creator son, and only one Salvagian daughter will attain the crown of the universe mother spirit. This sounds like a rebellion to me, but I'm just going to read what the Urantia book says, okay? It is not possible, as it is with other evolutionary beings, for these Lananandex sons to progress from one group to another. When subjected to the Melchizedek training, when once tested and certified, they serve continuously in the rank assigned. Neither do these sons engage in reproduction. Their number in the universe is stationary. So as we can see, the Lananandex cannot move to be another type of being, not even in their own order. A secondary Lananandex will always be a secondary Lananandex. So how are they trying to say that a Lananandex can become a creator's son? They would have to rise above the ranks of the Verandadex, the Melchizedeks, even Gabriel himself, to become a creator's son in our local universe. That is ridiculous. That is unimaginable to my finite human mind. I cannot entertain that thought. Not after a Michael's son has to bestow himself 7 times into 7 levels of intelligent beings to become the sovereign of the universe that he created, to simply pass down his crown to a Lananandex son who are notorious for being rebels. I don't think so. Sorry. Moving on. King Lucifer? Really? King Lucifer. Let's see what it says. The incredible irony is, be it not for rebellion, Christ Michael would have relinquished his rulership to his most brilliant son, Lucifer, who was next in line for coronation. Lucifer would have eventually attained everything he sought, and much more. The Urantia book states Lucifer was a magnificent being and brilliant personality. He stood next to the most high fathers of the constellations in the direct line of universe authority. So there you have it from the Urantia book. Lucifer stood in line, next in line to the Lananandex, who are the constellation fathers or the most highs, which is accurate based on the teachings of the Urantia book. Lucifer is a Lananandex son, which is the 3rd order. He's next in line to the 2nd order, who are next in line to the 1st order. Lucifer is miles away from being ordered in line in order to the throne of Michael. That's not even a consideration in the Urantia book. And as you can see here, it clearly states Melchizedek's sons, Verandadex sons, Lananandex sons, Lucifer. The Urantia book also states that Jesus had pre-knowledge, which means he knew about Lucifer's rebellion and future destiny even before it happened. This is what the Urantia book says. It was merely a case of pre-knowledge concerning the course of natural law. just such knowledge as Jesus frequently resorted to subsequent to his baptism. Now, even when Jesus was a human being living in the flesh, he knew what was going to happen before it happened. He had pre-knowledge. He told the apostles what was going to happen before it happened. He told Peter, who was saying, "Master, I'll die for you, I'll die for you." Jesus said, "Before the cock crows, Peter, you are going to deny me 3 times. And Peter said, "Never, Master, I would never do that." But Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and then he heard the cock crow. Imagine how much more pre-knowledge Jesus has as Christ Michael, the 7-fold sovereign of our local universe, who doesn't have to deal with the issues of flesh and blood and limited human intellect. And some so-called revelatory update is going to tell me that if Lucifer didn't rebel, he would be in line for the next coronation. Sorry. Let's move on. The next conflict is number 9, discussing rebel midwayers. The Millennium III states, Lucifer and most system rebels, except for the fallen Caligastia and a number of his rebel midwayer conspirators, have been apprehended and all remain sequestered on detention spheres awaiting adjudication. This part should be in blue because this is what the Urantia Millennium is saying, so excuse my mistake. Although Lucifer and Satan currently remain sequestered and confined on detention spheres, contrary to certain assumptions, be it known that other system rebels, such as the angry fallen Prince Caligastia and a certain number of his vagrant rebel conspirators, are yet free to exercise their nefarious and destructive agenda amongst the civilizations of Urantia. Now, this is what the Urantia book says. The entire group of rebel midwayers is at present held prisoner by order of the Most Highs of Edentia. That is the veranda decks. No more do they roam this world on mischief bent. The entire group means everyone. If I take my band on tour and say the entire group is on stage, that means that all of us are on stage ready to play. If somebody's left in the dressing room, it's not the entire group. So this is a major conflict with the Urantia book. The Urantia book goes on to say, the midwayers at present on Urantia, all of whom are of honorable standing, are not connected with the phenomena of so-called mediumship. So all of the midwayers on our planet are of honorable standing. They are honorable. They are not rebels. They're respectable, loyal, law-abiding beings who support the ascension plan that Michael has put in place. They support our evolutionary progress, and they are not involved in mediumship. So whatever you want to call mediumship, they are not involved in that. Okay? The Urantia book goes on to say both groups of rebel midwayers are now held in custody, awaiting the final adjudication of the affairs of the system rebellion. The entire group, all of them, are gone. Alright, so that's another conflict that clearly states the Urantia Millennium III is in major error. So, that concludes my journey into Urantia Millennium III. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it answered any questions or cleared up any doubts you may have about this book. Please contact me if you think, I saw something that wasn't there or I made some mistakes along the way. I'd be happy to get your feedback. But for now I will state that my studies have been very thorough, very intense, and I find the Urantia Millennium III Revelatory Update 2020 to be in serious conflict with the Urantia book, which is the Fifth Epochal Revelation to humanity. So I will put down this Urantia Millennium III book now, even though I've enjoyed some of the parts that I cannot question, but because it contains so many errors and claims to be something that it is not, I have to put it down as a false book of false information in its totality. I have always loved to study all religious books, and the Urantia book states, "There is not a Urantia religion that could not profitably study and assimilate the best of the truths contained in every other faith, for all contain truth."